Shalom everyone! Today you are going to learn how to pronounce the Hebrew letter Chet. Yes, it's the scary ch sound. So, what you probably have learned from the previous lesson on Chet is that Chet makes the sound ch as in Bach, Bach. So, ch sound is what the letter Chet makes. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is explain the process of how I learned the letter Chet. Okay, so I cannot guarantee that this method may work for you, but I'm just going to do my best to explain how I learned it, and you can try to see if it works for you. Okay, so before I actually show you how I learned it, what I want to explain something to you first. Okay, so it's the difference between pronunciation and enunciation. So you're probably wondering, like, what's the big deal? I already know the difference. The reason why I want to talk to you about this first is to help you ease your mind when learning this letter. And many of the time people get so worked up on trying to just get the sound of the letter, and they don't realize that they don't have to be perfect. So here's the thing. When you're learning a language, or especially like Hebrew, what is more important, pronunciation or enunciation? The answer is pronunciation. So pronunciation, and what I mean by that is it's important for you to know what the sound of the letter is. So, for example, to know that this letter here is a chet, and it makes a ch sound, and to know that this is a letter hey, and it makes a h sound. So it's much more important to know the sounds and the difference between these letters than on the enunciation. Enunciation is something that will come over time. Enunciation means to say or pronounce the letter, the sound of the letter with clarity. So when you were a child and you were learning your native language, you probably never enunciated every letter clearly. You never said everything perfectly, but you did understand the difference between the letters. You understood the sounds of the letters. So it's much more important to have the understanding of the sound of the letters, to know the difference between the letters. Like, this makes the h sound because it's a hey, and this makes the h sound because it's a chet. So even if you have that understanding of those differences in your mind, that's more important than even if you're able to speak it, because it's much more important for you to understand the meaning of the word. Because if you mix up the letters and you don't know the difference between these two, you may get the vocabulary and stuff wrong. So it's much more important for you to have the right pronunciation. Enunciation will come over time the more you hear Hebrew. So even when I started out learning Hebrew, my enunciation, and probably still now also, isn't that great. But it's something that got better over time. So I wasn't able to say the letter chet that easily when I first started as well. So it was kind of harder for me also to say the sound of that letter. But the more I listened to Hebrew audio Bibles or other people speaking Hebrew, so listening to videos where people were speaking Hebrew and stuff like that, I would hear the sound, and then I would develop the ability to imitate that sound, because the more I heard it, the more I could imitate it better. So when you're a child also, you were not born speaking any language. You also didn't speak it for several months. You spent most of your time hearing other people speak it. And then after a while, you started to imitate the sounds of your parents or siblings or whoever else was around you at the time. You would imitate them. And that's how you learn to speak. And that's not any different with other languages. The more you hear other people say the sounds, you will start to imitate them. So don't expect to get the sound immediately or right away. And don't let anyone pressure you into saying that you have to get the sound immediately. And don't pressure yourself also to get the sound immediately. Because the reality is, even with our own native languages, in my case, English, even though I'm fluent in English, I still slip up and make mistakes in English when I'm speaking, especially when I'm speaking fast. So if we are not flawless in our own native languages, why would you expect to be flawless in a language you're just starting to learn? You don't need to put that kind of pressure on yourself, okay? So these are the things which I want you to keep in mind when you're trying to learn this letter. Take that pressure off of you. You don't need it. So just know that you should know pronunciation is more important than enunciation, and enunciation is something that will come over time. The other thing you should keep in mind is don't force the sound for this letter. Because it's a sound that's made in the back of your throat, if you try to force it, you can end up getting a sore throat. Because that's what happened to me. I tried to force the sound out, and it kind of hurts your throat if you were to do that. Don't force it. You have to be very gentle. In fact, the letter Chet, the sound of the letter, is considered softer than the letter Hey. And the letter Hey makes a hard sound, and the letter Chet makes a soft sound. Now, what do I mean by that? The letter Hey makes a hard sound because when I make the H sound, H, I cannot carry the H sound longer. I can only do it with one puff of air and then it's gone. Whereas with the letter Chet, I can hold the sound a bit longer. So I can go. So I held that sound longer than the letter Hey. And that's what I mean by soft sound. It's not something hard. It should be soft and gentle it's like a small puff of air, but actually it's not a puff of air. It's a flow of air that's constantly flowing out, whereas the letter Hey is a puff of air. So that's what you should keep in mind between these two letters. So don't force the sound, otherwise you could hurt your throat like I did. Okay? So now we're going to take a look at how to actually say the sound of this letter and how specifically how I learned how to do it. And it's by using the German name Bach. So in the German sort of pronunciation of Bach is the ending is like the letter Chet. So you would say Bach. But usually in English, we probably say it with something like a K, Bach, Bach. Some like in English, we probably just say Bach instead of Bach. So we're going to use this name to try and get the sound of the letter. So what you're going to do is you're going to try and say it the English way, Bach, Bach. But after the K part, what you're going to try and do is make the K sound sort of like a flow of air to extend it. Instead of stopping and you say Bach and closing the K, instead open it up and with the back of your throat kind of thing. You have to do it in the back of your throat and you send a flow of air out, not a puff of air like Hey, but a flow. So you go Bach, 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 and then you try to get a flow of air after the K sound. So you go Bach. So with the K, go K, 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 and then send the flow of air out. Go K, 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 and then send the flow of air out. That's how I learned it, by hearing the name Bach. So I'm going to say the name Bach, and then you can try and hear the ending sound. Bach, 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 Bach. So you can hear the k, k. So you go k, 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 and then go k, k, k. So k, k. You can hear how the sound is coming. So you start with the K sound, and then you go with the flow. So it's like a hard sound, and then suddenly you soften it with a flow of air coming from the back of your throat. And that's how you get the Chet sound. So after you are able to isolate the sound at the end of Bach, try to say the name of the letter, which is Chet. Chet. So now instead of getting the sound at the end of the name, now you're going to, of the name of Bach, now you're going to try and do it before the name of this letter. So you're going to try and get the sound and say Chet, Chet. And also another thing is pay attention to the feeling in your throat when you're getting it. You will feel something in your throat, like a little bit of a pressure or the flow of air coming out of your throat when you're making this sound. Another thing you can do is hold your hand in front of your mouth. And when you make the K sound, you say Bach, you don't really feel that much of an airflow coming out when you say Bach. But when you say Bach, you will feel an airflow coming out and touching your hand. And that's how you can check if you're also saying it better than just saying it with just only the K. And you're actually getting an airflow out. So you can try holding your hand in front of your mouth and saying Bach. And if you feel that airflow, then you know you're getting the airflow out. Okay? So these are some tips and tricks for trying to isolate the sounded letter. But what you should actually do is probably just listen to someone saying the name Bach over and over and over again. And eventually you will be able to start to imitate it. So maybe for a minute, listen to just someone pronouncing the name Bach, Bach. And then you can try to imitate it. So first listen for a while and then try to imitate, because that's how you learned as a child. You first listened for months before you probably ever spoke your first word, and then you started to imitate. Okay, so these are the tips and tricks which you can use to learn the letter Chet. And once you have learned this letter, the name of the letter, and saying Chet and isolating the sound, you can try to say this word, chesed, the word you learned in the previous video. So you can try to say chesed. So this part here of the letter is the ch sound. And this ending part here is sed, sed. So chesed, chesed, chesed. And you can try to combine it with the eh sound and say chesed and say this word finally. So this is how you can try to learn the letter Chet. Okay? So I hope that helped you out and you're able to understand how to make the sound. But I'm not expecting you to enunciate it clearly. It won't be perfect and flawless at first. It's something you will practice and have to develop over time. So try and remember the part over here where it's like the K and then the flow of air coming out after you say the K. So you say Bach and then Bach. You can kind of hear the K and then the flow of air coming. So try and practice that, and then you can get the sound Chet. So that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next lesson where you learn the letter Tet. Okay? Until then, shalom and God bless. And don't put too much pressure on yourself for learning this letter, okay? It's hard. Give yourself a break. Anyway, shalom.